So, while the UK continues to tighten its belt, while nurses are striking, families are choosing between heating and eating, and public services are at a breaking point. Guess who's getting richer than ever? That's right, King Charles. According to recent reports, King Charles's personal wealth has now ballooned to a staggering £640 million, and that's just his personal wealth. That doesn't even count the Crown estate, the Duchy of Lancaster, or the Crown jewels, things that make up the mountain of riches this man controls by virtue of simply being born into it. Let's break this down. Just over the last year, Charles's wealth increased by £30 million in 1 year. That's more than most people could ever dream of making in a lifetime, and this is a man who hasn't had a real job a day in his life. While he plays dress-up in military uniforms and strolls past tables of pastries for photo ops, the country is footing the bill for palace renovations, private jets and luxury car convoys. And now we find out that public funding for the royal household has tripled since 2012. Tripled! The sovereign grant went from £31 million to over £132 million per year. Why? Because apparently Buckingham Palace needed a facelift. And somehow, that's our problem. How many homes in the UK have mould growing on the walls, people sleeping in freezing conditions, and children being raised in poverty, yet the monarchy gets a blank cheque because the wallpaper in their palace was peeling? And let's not forget, this isn't just about Charles living in obscene luxury. This money props up the entire Windsorian charade. All the left-behind, barely useful royals clinging to taxpayer-funded relevance. The same royals who spend their time briefing against Harry and Meghan to the tabloids. The same ones who are always too duty-bound to speak out on real social issues, but not too shy to leak a hit piece when the Sussexes are doing real humanitarian work. Let me remind you, Harry and Meghan walked away from all of this. They chose independence over inherited wealth. They said, no, thank you to the golden cage, to being pawns in a game run by palace courtiers and tabloid editors. And instead of being celebrated for that courage, they're demonized by a press machine designed to protect the very system that made Charles a multimillionaire on the public dime. You want to talk about value? Prince Harry served 2 tours in Afghanistan. He created the Invictus Games, a life-changing platform for wounded veterans around the world. Meghan built a successful career on her own, advocated for women's rights, wrote children's books, supported food kitchens, and worked with charities even while she was pregnant and being hounded by the UK press. But somehow, we're supposed to believe they're the problem? They're the ones taking advantage? Let's be real. This isn't about public service. This is about preserving a monarchy that enriches itself while the rest of the country struggles. And Charles, for all his talk of modernising the firm, is sitting at the top of this pyramid scheme, wealthier than even his mother, Queen Elizabeth, who reigned for 70 years. They tell us the monarchy is a bargain, that it costs less than a cup of coffee per person, but they never talk about the hidden costs, the silenced voices, the mental health toll, the weaponized media, the cost of vilifying Harry and Meghan to distract from Prince Andrew's scandals or William's rage issues or the crumbling foundation of the entire institution. They want us looking at Meghan's hairstyle or Harry's Netflix deal instead of asking how Charles made £30 million richer in a year while supposedly battling cancer. They want us distracted by tabloid drama, so we won't ask why Prince William is suddenly raking in Duchy millions with zero transparency, or why taxpayers are funding helicopter rides for photo ops while our NHS is begging for scraps. Oh, and let's not forget how Charles came to all this wealth in the first place. He was the longest-serving Prince of Wales in history, raking in £23 million a year from the Duchy of Cornwall. And now that money flows straight into William's pocket. Generational wealth passed down like a family business, all funded by land that technically belongs to the British public. And yet, somehow, the press can't stop attacking Meghan Markle, because she dares to wear Dior or speak fluent compassion. We see what's happening. The wealth, the distractions, the corruption, and the use of scapegoats, Prince Harry and Duchess Meghan, to keep the public from looking too closely at how the sausage is made. Charles might finally have all the palaces, the jewels, the titles, and the wealth he's always waited for. But what does it say that he still seems miserable, that his own son has distanced himself, that his reign is marked not by inspiration but by insulation? You cannot buy legacy. You cannot build trust with PR campaigns. And you cannot demand loyalty from a public when you're living in opulence while telling them to be proud of austerity. Harry and Meghan, for all the lies thrown at them, chose love over lineage. They chose service over status. And that terrifies the monarchy because it reveals the truth. You don't need a crown to make a difference. Then King Charles's personal wealth has grown to £640 million in the past year. Here are some photos from Thursday where King Charles and Queen Camilla made a visit to Bradford, England. It was a pretty typical away day, full of walkabouts, handshakes, awkward hugs, and Charles observing tables full of food, one of his favourite activities. There were several moments where photographers caught Charles looking like he was mid-curse, which is always a treat. Meanwhile, let's talk about money. Several days ago, the BBC reported something we already knew in general terms, which is that the sovereign grant has risen steeply in the past 13 years. Public funding for the royal household has tripled in real terms since 2012, official figures show, with the rise driven largely by repairs and building work at Buckingham Palace. The sovereign grant, which provides state funding for the monarchy, was introduced in 2012 at £31 million per year. That has now risen to £132 million, data from the House of Commons library shows, and once inflation has been taken into account, that represents about a threefold increase. The grant rose 53% in April, from £86.3 million to £132.1 million. Royal aides say this was because of a Buckingham Palace building project, and the grant will come down again, adding that the monarchy represents good value. Lord Turnbull, a crossbench peer and a former cabinet secretary, called the way the grant was calculated, using a calculation based on Crown Estate profits, was complete and utter nonsense, but said that the budget isn't high compared with other presidential heads of state. The budget isn't high compared with other presidential heads of state. A few things. Presidential heads of state are elected, it's not a hereditary position. And the cost of a presidency includes salaries for federal officials working for the executive on matters of law and policy. King Charles supports a staff which mostly works in PR to hype the monarchy as good value, in between briefing shy tea about royal scapegoats. The sovereign grant also supports the left-behind Windsors who barely garner any attention or provide any benefit to the public. On the heels of this news about the sovereign grant, it looks like Charles's personal wealth has also grown by leaps and bounds in the past year. The King's personal wealth has gone up by £30 million to £640 million in the past year, making him twice as rich as his late mother, Queen Elizabeth II. The monarch, 76, who acceded to the throne in 2022, ranks joint 238th in the list of the UK's 350 wealthiest people and families, up 20 places from 258th in 2024, according to the Sunday Times Rich List. The monarch is £140 million richer than David and Victoria Beckham, who are said to be worth £500 million, with former England captain Beckham being Britain's richest sports star. The late Queen's wealth was said to be £370 million in 2022, with Charles now estimated to be worth £270 million more than his mother, rising from £610 million to £640 million in 2025. The current sovereign, Charles III, was the longest-serving Prince of Wales in history, between 1958 and 2022. As the Prince of Wales, Charles received a private income of up to £23 million a year from the Duchy of Cornwall estate, now inherited by Prince William. The 76-year-old monarch, who has faced a challenging past year as he continues to undergo treatment for cancer, has benefited from the investment portfolio he inherited from his late mother for the bulk of his wealth, the newspaper said. His private estates, Sandringham in Norfolk and Balmoral in Aberdeenshire, which belong to the Queen, are part of his financial fortune. Only personal assets are included by the Sunday Times when assessing the sovereign's wealth. This does not include the Crown estate, which saw soaring profits thanks to wind farm deals, the Duchy of Lancaster estate, nor the Crown jewels which are held in trust by the King for the nation. £640 million, not including the Crown estate, Duchy of Lancaster, Crown jewels, or all of the Royal Collection jewels and art, correct? Charles really made a Faustian bargain. He's finally king in his 70s, and all of it is finally his, and he's in charge, and he has all of the palaces and castles, and he's still miserable. His heir is still bleating constantly about how Charles will be gone soon. He's still a terrible father. If you believe in compassion over cruelty, in transparency over tradition, and in actual public service instead of palace pageantry, then you're already part of this movement. You're part of the Royal Sussex squad. So let's keep speaking truth, let's keep calling out the hypocrisy, let's keep lifting up Harry and Meghan, not because they're perfect, but because they chose to be real in a world that rewards the fake. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode, and show your support by hitting that super thanks button. Your contributions help keep this platform going strong, loud, and unafraid to challenge the narrative. Until next time, stay bold, stay curious, and stay royal, the Sussex Squad way.